Hello, I'm Jack and this is Entertainment World, and today I'll be talking about Suicide Squad Extended Cut. Suicide Squad was written and directed by David Ayer and has a really big cast, so I'm not going to just list them all here. So anyway, before I begin this review properly, talking about the things more in depth and the little details and stuff like that, it's very hard for me to review this film because this film is the precursor to Justice League, in that even though, unlike Justice League, which was massively reshot, completely different director brought in, not just a different director, it had absolutely no similarities to the previous director whatsoever, apart from the fact they both directed comic book films. So that film was, completely different. And it didn't go that far, but this film was completely edited, colour corrected, altered, the overall tone was changed, music was taken out and added in, some stuff worked quite a bit, was reshot, although they kept the same director. It's just that they gave him new pages of script and said, we want it filmed like this. So even though it wasn't a different director, it might as well have been, because it wasn't what he originally had intended as the writer-director. And because of that, this film, like I said, is the precursor to Justice League, although it wasn't as extreme in terms of studio interference, alterations, rewrites, things like that. It was going down that road. So I just wanted to point that out, get that out there before I started this review, because I don't like to bash it and say, oh, he did this wrong. I don't blame David Ayer for this film. I don't. No more than I blame Zack Snyder for Justice League. And I don't blame Zack Snyder at all. It's Joss Whedon's fault. It's Warner Brothers' fault. The problems with this film, in my opinion, are Warner Brothers' fault. Whoever the fuck edited it, I don't know. It was a trailer company. And Jeff Johns. They're the people I blame for this film's shortcomings and weird alterations. Although there might still be a few things which could have done better, and maybe they were David Ayer decisions. I still think the overall film would have presented itself a lot better at the very least. And had it just been a bit longer and a bit darker, and the editing less all over the place, it still would have been overall a better film. But might not be the best film ever, but it would have still been a lot better than. There aren't loads of things that you would need to do to improve this film by quite a bit. There's a lot that you would need to do to make it really good, but to make it from okay to actually quite good, there aren't genius level rewrites. They're just, well, if you could have done that a little bit differently, or made that longer, made it a bit darker, showed more of that character sort of thing, it would have been better. So anyway, now I'll be getting into the review properly. I just wanted to point all of that out before I started going into the negatives, because I don't want to be another one of those people on YouTube just randomly bashing this film and making some poor guy who is actually, I love him, David Ayer. Fury is one of my favourite war films. I know some of the things he's done have been a little bit hit and miss, but I don't want to sit here and bash, because who am I to just stand here bashing the shit out of him for no reason. So I just wanted to point that out there, that I am his fan and I don't blame him for this. So anyway, sorry about all of that. I will now be going into the negatives, as I like to do the negatives first. Also, sorry to quickly add this, I just wanted to add this really quickly. I filmed this a lot later. Same with this video has been a bit like Suicide Squad. I filmed it at lots of different times and trying to edit it all together. So it's probably going to end up a little bit similar in the same way, a bit all over the place. So sorry about that. But I just wanted to say as well, another reason why I don't blame David Ayer for this film is because he didn't have a final say what was released. Him and his team made his version of the film, and then the Warner Brothers gave the footage, the original footage and the reshot footage and all of that version, to a trailer editing company to make a final version of the film. And the version of the film that was released was the version that the editing company did. So another reason why I don't blame David Ayer, because he didn't have the final say of what was in the film or how it was presented. And then it had his name on it, so I don't blame him, because I think his version would be a lot better and would be a great film still. because I think he is a good director and I have liked some of his other films as well. Right, so let's start off with the base, well, going from where I started, really. Without needing to say it again, the editing is a bit all over the place. It's so bizarre, some of it. It's just like, they just sort of bounce around from thing to thing, and it's so quick. There's like shots on people that are very bizarre, and you don't really know why they're in there. And the one example is the dinner scene, the dinner table. There's a scene in the film. It's in the trailer. Again, this film's 5 years old, so I'm assuming if you're watching this, you've at least heard about it and watched the trailer. There's a dinner table scene which is in the trailer, and that scene is very sort of... It sort of bounces really quickly. Like there's a shot where it'll be on one person, and then when it cuts to the next person, instead of just going to the next person, there'll be a quick shot of somebody in the middle, like, because there's 3 people, and you'll cut to one guy, but then cut to the other person who's talking, as if they were going to say something and then it was cut out. So it will literally be like, person talking, and then shot, person talking. And because of that, it's just like on that person for 1 second. So it's like talking, person talking. So, like, I can't describe it any better. Just person randomly on one guy for like 1 second and another person. So you sort of a bit like, what was the point of that shot? I didn't really need to see that. Or had it just been like 2 seconds longer, and maybe actually, if it was a good facial reaction, like thinking about what's being said, it would make more sense. But because it's literally on them for, you could blink and you would miss it. It's just a bit like, whoa, that's a bit jarring. So, start off with that one. So yeah, the editing's a bit mental. The tone of the film is also a bit like that, like it goes really quickly. And if you watch the original Comic Con trailer, the film which came out years ago, actually shortly after the BVS trailer, I think it was actually the same time as the BVS trailer, or really close together, because they were advertised at a very similar time, which was quite funny, because you got Ben Affleck in both, and neither film had come out, and there's a trailer for Ben Affleck Batman in 2 different films. But the trailer came out, it was very dark, it looked really creepy, and you're like, oh, that looks good, that looks like it could be a good skit, like almost, not a horror film like Texas Chainsaw, although it might be like that, I don't know, but it would have been sort of more like a Seven or a Zodiac sort of feel to it, but with more action, if that sort of makes sense. Because it's called Suicide Squad. It's got the word suicide in the title. It's not exactly aimed at 5-year-olds, so, you know, I was looking at the trailer and it's quite dark and it looked creepy, and the music was, I Started a Joke cover. I can't remember who did the cover, but it was really creepy, and I was like, oh, this looks good. And I remember, how old was I in 2000? How old was I when that was getting advertised? I would have been 13 when that trailer came out. Because I turned 14 that year, but when the trailer came out, I was 13. And I remember I went to, sort of like, I went to Bisley with some of my cousins and some of their friends, sorry. And when we were there, because my cousins are big on comic book stuff, we were talking, and they were like, oh, yeah, did you see the Suicide Squad trailer? And I was like, yeah, oh, that looked great, didn't it? And they were like, yeah, it does. They needed a therapist on set because of how dark it was. And you're like, whoa, that's quite cool. And all of these things, and all of these, like, oh my god, it's really creepy. And you look at the trailer, and you're like, yeah, that does look creepy. And then you watch this film. I know there was actually a trailer in between which then used Ballroom Blitz by the Sweet. So that should have been a bit of a telltale sign that it was starting to, you know, distance itself from the creepy nature of the film. But even that looked still more like the original trailer than the film did. It just looked like they might have been advertising it in a different way. The different side of the film. It's like creepy, like poppy sort of at the same time. Because that's what Suicide Squad could be. It could be like this creepy black, sort of filthy, less colour and sort of thing. and then have like bright colours for creepy things like Joker's hair. So it's got a bit of a grey look, and then like bright green Joker hair sort of thing. That makes sense. Sort of like, you know, you make the colours stand out by making everything else look grey and not as colourful. And in this film, there's just nothing like that. It's so, and it feels like it was going for the creepy thing, but they've colour corrected it, and they've put over music, like not score music, like written for the film, but as like pop music or rap music or stuff like that to change the tone. And at some bits in the film, it goes back to being creepy because, you know, they wanted it to work for that scene, but then it goes to the complete polar opposite, and the tone just sort of feels a bit like it's 80% no longer scary, if that makes sense, but the last 20% of it sort of clashes with the rest, and that's what happens when you... Yeah, this is what I've said, and I've always said, and I'll always say this. You can make a film light, funny, cool, family friendly, entertaining, all of that. You can do that with film, obviously you can. But it's a lot fucking hard when you do that from the get-go, sorry, but it's a lot fucking harder when you try and do that to a film that's already been made by somebody who did not have that in mind, had a more adult, scary, dark theme in mind. And that shows with this film. So yeah, it's just so inconsistent with the tone, and like I said, the editing, and I mean, some characters are introduced twice. Deadshot and Harley Quinn have 2 introductions, and I don't get it at all. Like, why are they introduced twice? Literally, they have a scene where it's just them, and then it cuts to the dinner table scene, and they're introduced with everybody else again. So it's a very weird sort of thing to do. I was like, yeah, I know who they are, you've just shown me. It was cool to see more of them and know what they can do and explain what they could do. But the first scene, the dinner table should have been like the first time you see the Suicide Squad. I know the original opening was actually Enchantress's opening, the main villain, and that would have been cool. And I feel like the next scene should have been the dinner table scene, and then they talk about them, and then you see what was the first time you see Deadshot and Harley Quinn. That would have made more sense. Some of the dialogue is a bit forced. It feels quite family friendly, sort of like it was meant to be a lot deeper, but then they cut it out, and it just sort of comes across as like quite forced. And it's sort of like they had a longer speech, but they cut the longer speech out, and then they try to get the same point across with half the words used, so it just sort of feels a bit like they're just saying it because the film needs them to say it for the film to continue. With one character in particular in the third act, whose fate was actually completely different, and because their fate was completely different, they had to change what his sort of like stance would be in that situation, if that makes sense. And because of that, they had to hammer in. I mean, it's just hard to not spoil it. Talk about, you know, to spoil it, but because of that, he randomly gets this like super forced, I'm gonna do this sort of thing, and it does sort of make sense considering what the character was like throughout the rest of the film. But it feels like a bit of a stereotypical, oh, he's redeeming himself by doing this, and he's so forceful about it. He's like, he's shouting, let me do this, blah, blah. And it just comes across as so forced and random. A lot of the other dialogue was a bit random as well, especially towards the third act, because the third act was completely reshot. I mean, I believe it, considering I saw what was in the original third act, and because of that, the whole thing just seems so bizarre and random and unforced. The third act, the final battle, is very choppy and unnatural, and everybody's it just seems like it's all trying to, not like try hard in a bad way, but it's just the whole thing just feels very over the top in the way it's presenting the situation and how the dialogue is spoken, and it feels a bit children's cartoony, like too obvious, too in your face sort of thing. And speaking of, like I said, characters were introduced twice, there's one character who doesn't even have an introduction because they cut it out. So it's random. It is so bizarre. Literally, Deadshot, Harley Quinn introduced twice. The rest have like 10-second long, really quick introductions, and you're like, well, that was too really quick. And then the next one character doesn't even have one. Literally doesn't have an introduction whatsoever, and it's just such a okay. Clearly, you want us to focus on Deadshot and Harley Quinn because it's Margot Robbie and Will Smith. The two big box office actors in this scenario. But you don't have to shit on the other characters just because the actors or actresses who aren't playing them aren't as famous. It's Suicide Squad. It's the group. Obviously, you want actors to be top billing and sell tickets, and obviously Will Smith and Margot Robbie are as one actor and one actress that are brilliant to do that. And they've worked together on another film, Focus, and you know that they can sell tickets. So I understand why you'd want that. But once the film gets going, you should show the other characters. So yeah, that's how I view that. It was there was too much focus on those two characters, and they're introduced twice, and yet there's one character who doesn't even have an introduction. So because of that, yeah, that's the editing there and the changing around and stuff. That really didn't help with that that situation. Okay, and with the third act, so I know I'm bouncing around a bit, but so does this film. The third act, like I said, isn't that good. That is one of the worst. That is one of the worst sequences in the film. Is the final confrontation thing. And speaking of the main villain, Enchantress, I like her design when she's creepy, because she's got two designs. She's got this really creepy witch look, and that is a cool look, and that's that could be a cool villain. I like that look for the character. But then she reaches like full goddess potential, and she goes from this creepy witch looking thing you would, like boogeyman scary thing, to this really weird, like, gold-wearing thing. And I don't know if that was originally how... I mean, I know David had different design, and I've seen that design, and that actually looks better. I don't know if he actually got to use that, though. But it's just, everything about it is so weird, and, like, the weird dance she does, I can't tell... I know it's meant to be creepy, and I know her movements were quite jarring, but it's like a weird combination of belly dancing and a stripper dance, and it just doesn't come across as threatening. You're the main villain, you're meant to be creepy, and you're just sort of like doing this. Obviously I can't see the camera, but it's just this weird shaky, but it's sort of, and then speeds up and then slows down, and you're sort of watching it like, I don't know what you're going for here at all. It's just bizarre. So she starts off cool. Could have been a great main villain with the original thing. Had she been more creepy, I'm sure it would have been, a lot more threatening and would have worked as the main villain. But whatever happened there, she just ends up coming across as a bit Power Ranger-y sort of type villain. And considering this film's called Suicide Squad, and in the United Kingdom is a 15, meaning nobody under the age of 15 can go watch it at the cinema, unlike R rating in America, where you can still go if you're underage if you're accompanied by an adult, or at least that's what I believe. Anyone under 15 could not go watch this in the cinema, so they might as well made it R rated in terms of UK audiences, because it would have still been a 15. So we ended up just getting a weaker film which children were still not allowed to watch. Even though it was changed to be more aimed at younger people, and because of that, it sort of lost its target audience. So yeah, when it's a 15 Suicide Squad, yeah, this could be cool. In terms of being someone from the UK going to watch it, you then end up with this. I mean, I got into the cinema. I was underage, but yeah, it just sort of came across like, well, that was a bit of a weird villain. It just, like I said, just comes across as Power Rangery. So yeah, not a great main villain. Speaking of changing the score, taking score out, putting music in, like songs, even though some of them worked and actually were quite cool and did fit the film, and I'll talk about those ones in the positives, it just sort of like, I would have preferred more score, more dark music. It's sort of, I mean, they actually put in a song that was used in the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. And obviously just because it was one film, it doesn't mean you can't put it in another film. But the thing that I find funny about that is the song they used from the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack to put in this film was the song that was in the soundtrack for Guardians of the Galaxy, although I don't actually think it was in the film Guardians of the Galaxy. So because of that, it just feels like they're trying to go for the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, and it just doesn't fit a lot of the time, and they could have done so much better. Some of the, I think it was Purple Lamborghini was the song which was written to promote Joker. The background music suited Joker actually quite well in a club scene, but you can hear the lyrics, and the lyrics don't suit what's going on. And you can actually hear the words Suicide Squad in a song in a film called Suicide Squad. That's just sort of like, it's too in your face. It's like too much marketing, and I was like, that's not good. Having the actual word Suicide Squad in a song in a film called Suicide Squad, that doesn't work. That's a bit weird. That would be like in the A-Team if they were listening to a song with the word A-Team in it. It just comes across as too in your face. Yes, I know. Ooh, Suicide Squad. That's amazing. I know. I'm watching it. You don't need to market me Suicide Squad. I'm watching it. I'm watching the film. You don't need to advertise it any further. I'm here. I've spent the money. I'm watching it on the screen. Why are you still, like, this just comes across as you're marketing me the film even though I'm watching it, and I don't understand that at all. It comes across as very... I can understand why you'd want, like, you have the name Suicide Squad, and I understand that, and people do product placement, and, it's with YouTube channels, people say, like I do, what their channel is, and a lot of other channels do that, because if you're just stumbling across random YouTube videos, you want people to go, oh yeah, I remember that name, and then go to the channel again later on. I understand that, but this is a film. It's a one and done film. Obviously you've got sequels, but in the terms of the context of what you're going for, it's a film. You don't need to keep marketing the film in the film. It just came across as dumb. And I actually noticed it when I watched it. I watched it yesterday from when I'm filming this video. I watched it last night. Obviously, by the time this is on YouTube, this won't be last night. But because of that, I noticed it then, and it bothered me. It really bothered me that there's a scene with Joker, and in the background you can hear a guy rapping the word Suicide Squad. I just thought, that's just taking me out of what's going on. That's just too in your face. Why would you do that? So, yeah, that's my view on the music. Some of it worked, quite a bit of it didn't. And speaking of Joker, right. People on here who want me to say Jared Leto's shit, his design is shit, everything about him is shit, you're going to be disappointed because I'm not going to do that. I am not. At all. I am not a Jared Leto Joker hater. I like Jared Leto Joker. But the reason why I'm doing it in the negatives is because so much was cut out. I mean, like 30-40 minutes of him was cut out. So you're left with about 10 minutes in the theatrical cut, I think it is, he has, or something like that, and about 12, somewhere between 12 and 15, I don't know exactly, but somewhere about that much with the extended cut. They actually put a whole scene back in and elongated a couple, you know, scenes that he was already in. I mean, like, ooh, one whole scene and a minute extra footage, yay. It doesn't matter, you know, it's not like they did him justice because they still fucked him over massively. But because David Ayer wanted to go for a much darker joke, and, you know, he's abusive to Harley. He doesn't care about Harley. She's a sex object. I don't, you know, obviously that's not a good thing. I'm not promoting anybody ever do that. Disclaimer, just before anybody gets offended by what I just said. But that is what she is to him. Look at the way she dresses for him. And the way he treats her. That is just... He doesn't care about her. She's useful. Well, maybe he has a bit of care, because he does come after her. But that sort of feels more like he's coming for his property, not like, because I love you, you're mine. And because you're mine, I made you. And that's the thing, he looks at it as a bit of a success, but he's turned to somewhat would have been a normal person. I mean, Harley Quinn was evil, internally evil, and David Ayer said that, you know, she enjoyed doing shock therapy, and David Ayer said, you know, in his version of the film, she was going to be much darker. But because of that, you're then, he described it as the Joker unlocked what was already there, which is cool. But if you're going for that sort of thing where, you know, he's abusive, because he's abusive in the comics, and he's creepy and he's scary and he's deranged, and then they cut all of that out, it's because they were going for that, because they cut all of it out, there wasn't a lot left. And the things that were left weren't that interesting because they cut out everything that was interesting. So then he just comes across as a bit of a derp, like he's only in it to promote Harley, which is fair because, you know, she's the main character. He's not the main character. She's a main character. Sorry, he's not. Well, I think he would have been the Ayer cut, but he doesn't need to be one of the main characters in a film called Suicide Squad. But they could have done more with him, or had they put the same amount of screen time in, you know, 15 minutes, but still made it darker like David Ayer originally intended, it would have worked better. But because they kept everything dark out, they just kept in everything that wasn't that interesting. So you don't really get where he's coming from. There's even a shot in the film where you see briefly in the background he's beating someone to death with a baseball bat, and then they cut away from it, and they cut back, and all of a sudden he's up front and centre, but he's done with whoever the fuck he was just murdering. So you don't see it, you don't really get properly. You get to see it if you're, you know, if you watch it like 10 times and you notice little things like you do with almost any film, because you probably wouldn't notice it the first time you watch it. You'd have to notice it after watching it more than once. Because of that, he just doesn't come across as threatening. He comes across as a bit weird. It's like if you cut out every scary scene with Jack Nicholson Joker and Heath Ledger Joker, you would almost get the same thing of just like, you're not selling me. You know, it doesn't matter how good he's acted and how good his design is or bad or whatever it is you feel about him. If you cut out every bit that's good and just make him try and come across family friendly in a character that was never portrayed in a family friendly way. So that's my view on Jared Leto Joker in terms of the negatives, but I will talk about him more in the positives. One last teeny tiny negative is I don't like some of the costumes designs for a couple things, and well, mainly Killer Croc. Part of me likes the Killer Croc design because it's more realistic than a big fucking crocodile guy who's like 20 feet tall. Or long, or however you want to word it. And I understand that, and I'm glad. I like the more real human design. But part of me wants it, so I'm in the middle. I don't know how I feel about it. It could be positive and it could be negative. It depends what mood I'm in, and it depends what you're looking for. If you like a more human, realistic looking Killer Croc, then you'll like Killer Croc. If you're hoping for a massively big, scary Killer Croc, you'd be disappointed with how Killer Croc looks. So just that last little thing I wanted to point out there. So anyway, now on to the positives. You've got the cast, and the cast are great. I love the cast, especially, you got Will Smith, Joel Kinnaman and Margot Robbie. They're amazing. They work really well together. I think they're my favourite performances at the film in terms of the main squad itself. Will Smith is a great Deadshot, and I loved him as Deadshot. I really did. I thought he was amazing. Harley Quinn. Margot Robbie, sorry. I nearly keep doing that. This is not the first time I've nearly said Harley Quinn plays Margot Robbie. No, Margot Robbie plays Harley Quinn, and she's amazing at it. I really like her as Harley Quinn. I mean, she's actually the best thing about the film, in my opinion. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is the best thing about the film. She was amazing at it. She's like Heath Ledger Joker. How Heath Ledger was for the Joker, Margot Robbie is for Harley Quinn, in my opinion. You could completely disagree with me and, lose your shit over it, but that's just my opinion. I think she's amazing as Harley Quinn. Brilliant casting, and I thought she worked really, really well, and I loved her as the character.
Seriously, what the hell's wrong with you people?
We're bad guys. It's what we do.
I thought Joel Kinnaman was a good Rick Flag. I enjoyed him. I don't know much about Rick Flag, so I can't comment too much on it, but I liked him. Karen Fukuhara was a good Katana. She didn't have a lot of screen time. She's one of those things where had they spent a bit more time on her, it probably would have worked better. But she's cool. Viola Davies is a great Amanda Waller. She's a better villain than the main villain. She's creepy, she's scary, you feel she's a threat to them, and I thought she worked brilliantly. And you got then, I can't remember the actor who played El Diablo, and I'll put it here. I think it's Jay somebody. I can't remember his second name, and it's a long second name, and I wouldn't be able to pronounce it probably. But he is a great El Diablo. I did like him. I really did like him. He could have done with probably a little bit more screen time as well, but he was good. I really enjoyed him. He had a lot of emotional moments in the film. I thought he was really good. And again, the actor who played Killer Croc, I can't remember what his name is. I think he also had a long name, so I'll put it there again, and I apologise, I can't remember those two. I feel bad, but he was a good Killer Croc. Even though I don't know what I think of the design as much, because sometimes I like it, sometimes I wish it would have been more, crocodile, but he was good. He was good at the role, so I'm not going to take it out on him. I enjoyed him as the character. He was a good voice. Cara Delevingne was a good Enchantress when she was the witch, even though the whole dance was weird. When she was the creepy witch, she was actually good, and I enjoyed her as the main villain. And when she was Dr. June Moon, who is the human that the witch lives inside, she was good as that as well. So she played those two things. I enjoyed her as those two parts of the character. But the third part, the goddess jiggly jiggly dance, that was when I was like... But the rest of it, so human and creepy witch, she worked really well as those two parts of the character. So I'll give her credit for those two, because that was good. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the Joker and Batman later on, because I have a lot to say about those two. So I was just getting that bit across there. A lot of the action is quite fun. I think the villains, the sort of like the shoot villains, the punching villains, the villains where there's a lot of them, and they're just for action sequences. They're not character. I can't remember what they're called, but as in what type of villain that is, sorry. But they work well. I enjoy them. They're quite creepy. They're called the Eyes of Armageddon, I think, is what their species are called, because they've got eyeballs like a lot of them. But they're fun. I enjoyed them. There's two really good action scenes against them. I'm not going to knock that. Those two action scenes are fun. The best action sequence, in my opinion, is the one out in the street when they're hiding behind cars and they're charging over the barriers out of the destroyed cars, and I enjoyed that. If you've watched it, you know what I'm on about. So I enjoyed that fight. That's probably my favourite action sequence throughout the film, because I also like the music, the score that's playing over it as well. So yeah, and some of the CGI and effects, some of it was a bit off with the whole dance, but for the most part the effects were good, and they were really good. So I'm not going to completely knock them just because of whatever the third act was trying to go for. But yeah, that was they were good for the most of the film. The CGI special effects sort of thing, I enjoyed that for the most part. So talking about effects and visual presentation, there was quite a good number of shots in the film as well, and sequences that were well done. So there was entertaining, action effects sequences. So I'm not going to knock it. And there was actually, even though I criticised some of the dialogue earlier, there's scenes where you can tell David Ayer wrote and David Ayer was going for. They were great. There was a lot of good moments of dialogue, including the best bit is a bar scene. I love that scene. It is a good scene. You could tell that was more what David Ayer was trying to go for. And because of that, it works, and I enjoy it. And throughout the film, there are moments of good dialogue. There's quite a few really good quotes. I don't know if there was many jokes by David Ayer, because I know he's going for the darker thing. But that doesn't mean you can't tell a few jokes along the way, little quick things. And there were quite a few good back and one-liners. If they were studio interference, then they did a lot better job with those jokes than they did with the ones in Justice League. So that's why I don't know if it was studio interference, because in terms of as jokes go, they were actually quite funny. So yeah, a few really good ones throughout the film. One line by Captain Boomerang is my favourite, and I absolutely love it. And that's in the bar scene, so I feel like that would be a David Ayer thing. They're talking and they're saying, "Here's to honour amongst thieves." And Captain Boomerang, my favourite thing ever, probably my favourite line in the whole film. I love it. Captain Boomerang goes, "I actually prefer to think of myself as an asset relocation specialist." I love it. I love that line. Asset relocation specialist. I love that. That's such a formal way of saying somebody who steals shit. I love it. I really do. And jokes with Will Smith and Joel Kinnaman are quite good. Especially the gun range scene. That's funny. There's quite a few funny moments as well with one of the guards. I'll say the joke, but I won't say what. He's saying, "If this man shoots me, I want you to kill him, and I want you to go clear my browser history." I know it's quite overused, that line, but I did enjoy it. It did work. Because of the character, it actually suited him, because you could picture that guy having some weird shit on his computer. So I enjoyed that. So either way, if they were David Ayer jokes, then that would make sense because they were good. But if they were Jeff Johns studio interference, then they were amazing considering the other shit that those fuckers have done. So that's my opinion on the humour and the dialogue. Most of it was good. Some of the song choices were good as well. I know I criticised some of them, but the songs, Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones, Black Skinhead, I think, by Kanye West, You Don't Own Me by Leslie Gore, there was another one which I can't remember now. Sorry about that. And like I said, the Black Skinhead, Purple Lamborghini music, the background part of it, worked for Joker. It's just the lyrics, especially when it goes Suicide Squad. I was like, pissed me off. But the background music part of it was quite good. There was another song, what was it? Sympathy for the Devil, Black Skinhead, Bohemian Rhapsody, that's what Bohemian Rhapsody. Yesterday, I forgot what Superman's mum was called in Batman v Superman, and today I forgot Bohemian Rhapsody. What the fuck is going on with me? Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. Those songs, because Bohemian Rhapsody actually was used to promote the film as well, that suited it. Those songs suited the film, suited the scenes they were used in, so I'm not going to knock it for that, because I enjoyed them. So yeah, some of the song choices were good. I love the costumes in this film for the most part. I think this film actually won an Oscar for its makeup and costume, which it deserved to. I actually liked it. It was really good. I think it does deserve that award. You might disagree with me, but whatever. I enjoyed the costumes and the set and the designs for a lot of things, so yeah, I can't knock the costumes at all. I enjoyed the look. The only person was Killer Croc, and Enchantress's thing, but yeah, even then I still like Killer Croc, if you know, for the more realistic nature of it, because obviously a 20-foot long massive crocodile man's a bit over the top. It's just part of me would like that, but part of me also likes what they were going for, so it just depends what mood I'm in. That's all. You know, if they ended, you know, the Batman with Robert Pattinson, and in whatever how many there are, trilogy, 4, 2, whatever, however many of those films are, if they do like a Killer Croc, which is like Arkham Killer Croc, then I haven't got a problem, because I've got both. It's just because I was like, oh, it would have been cool to see Big Killer Croc, but then this Killer Croc could become Big Killer Croc. So that's just my view. So I like the costumes and the designs of things there, and the music and all of that. A lot of the things like that did work well. It was just, it didn't mesh with what a lot of the songs didn't mesh, but some of the songs and the costumes were all great. Though it felt limited, the score was good. I enjoyed the original score for the film. I don't have a lot to say. I can't keep going on and on about it, because I can't talk about it a lot. I don't listen to it like I do with Man of Steel's and BVS's score, but I did enjoy it. It did suit the film, and I did like the overall score, and I wish they did more of it. Stephen Price, who did the music for it, did a good job. Like, he did the score and stuff. So, like I said, I don't have a lot to say, but I enjoyed it, and I do wish there was more of it. So that's how I feel about that. So now I'm going to talk about some spoilery sort of stuff, because there are a couple of things I want to mention. So if you haven't watched it, go to the timestamp here. Or if you want to watch it, go to timestamp here. And if you don't care, then you can watch anyway, but that's what I'm warning you. So anyway, now I'm going to get into a few spoilery stuff now. Okay, so my first spoiler positive is I love the relationship that Deadshot has with his daughter. I love that they show that even though he's a hitman who's killed hundreds of people for lots of money over the course of years, he still is trying to be a good father. And throughout the film, that's all he cares about. That's all he wants to do, is get home to his daughter and, you know, her come live with him and him protect her. And him just basically just be an overall good dad. And I love that that's his end goal. And I love that that's his motivation throughout the whole film, is to get back to his daughter. Because if they just made him a serial killer, essentially who takes credit cards, which is what Rick Flag calls him, if he is just that, then he has no real character. You don't care for him. Whereas they actually give him a real human, you know, motivation to want to get out, like anybody else would. You know, if you had a daughter and you were in prison, you would want to get out and see your daughter, assuming you're not a completely horrible and terrible piece of shit, depending on why you're in prison. But most people would. Most people would want to see their daughter again, no matter if it's, like I said, gone to prison, or if they've had to go away for a long trip, or if they're you know, maybe they've been drafted and have to go fight in a war. No matter what it is, no matter why you've been removed from your family, that's a great motivation, and it works really well for Deadshot in this film. And speaking of, I love the, you know, loving the relationship those two have, and her being his motivation throughout the film. I love the Batman scene with Deadshot. I really do. I feel like, I might be wrong, but I feel like that's set after BVS. I know the wiki says it's before BVS, but the reason why is I felt like pre-BVS Batman wouldn't care, you know, about the daughter. He would be like, he would just kick the shit out of him anyway. But I love it when he arrests Deadshot and says, "It's over, Deadshot, I don't want to do this in front of your daughter." And then only when Deadshot retaliates does he do anything, and even then he's not like going full Batman on him, it's like the bare minimum he can do. And then when the daughter steps out in the way, Batman respectfully just stands there. He doesn't make it worse, he doesn't grab the daughter and fling her out the way or do anything like that. He just respectfully understands the situation and is willing to just let them have a human moment. And I like that. I really love that scene.
I'm gonna figure this out. Alright? It's over, Deadshot. I don't want to do this in front of your daughter.
Daddy, please.
Zoe, move!
Please, Daddy, don't do it. Please. Don't do it. Love you, Daddy.
Another thing about Batman, actually, it's very minor. It's a very, very minor detail, and you might as well. I could almost not mention it, but I want to because I personally like it. I like it when he is going after Joker and Harley, and it's so brief, but when the Batmobile door opens and he comes to jump out, you can see the anger on his face. You can see that getting Joker is incredibly personal to him, because obviously the death of Robin is a huge motivation for Batman, because Joker's murdered Robin, and I love that. So I love that sequence quite a lot. I like the whole sequence. Wish it was longer. Was going to be a lot longer. But even though it's heavily cut down, I still enjoyed the minute we got. I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram and say I don't like something because it was shorter than I would want it to be. I think that's a bit mental, but I did like it.
Come on, Puddin'! Do it!
Oh, we have got company.
Betsy, Betsy, Betsy.
She's crazier than him and more fearless.
Stupid bats, you're ruining date night! Puddin'? Puddin' again!
Obviously, I love the bar scene. I mentioned that earlier in my non-spoiler bit, but I do love the bar scene. I love the conversation they're talking about. Diablo saying how he regret he accidentally killed his family in a fit of rage, and he's so sad about it. And it's one of the most emotional parts of the film. And I don't love that it happened, but I love the conversation itself. If you know what I mean. So I love that bit. Like I said, there are little good things like that, little good character moments, like also relationship, Rick Flag and Dr. June Moon's relationship's quite sweet. She's his main motivation throughout the film, and she's also the main villain. Well, the main villain lives in her body, but it's sad that he knows there's a chance that they're going to have to kill the witch no matter what, and his wife's, well, his not wife but girlfriend's inside of that, and that's sad. And obviously his relationship with Amanda Waller is also cool. The way they secretly hate each other. Well, not secret. They try and keep it a secret from the squad. But when it's just them, you know they hate each other. But I just like the way that plays out in their relationship. But it's just them not wanting to work together, but knowing she needs Flag, and Flag knowing if he leaves, then his girlfriend will be, drugged, unconscious, and essentially kept as a slave by Amanda Waller. So I love that going on there.
what are you really up to?
It's a need to know, and all you need to know is you work for me.
I can change for the phone call. I have friends too, you know.
There you go. Call.
But without you minding her, your lady friend stays here strapped to a board in a drug-induced coma.
They warned me about you. The dumbass didn't believe the stories.
Nobody does.
So there are a lot of little good details in Suicide Squad. Like I said, I just think I think it's a great film, but it's been turned into okay. That's what I think of it. That is what I think of it. That is like it's a good film, and I think the David Ayer's cut is going to be good. Like would be good. Well, is going to be. I mean, it's not confirmed. Confirm it. HBO Max, because I want to watch it. And lots of other people want to watch it. So release David Ayer's Suicide Squad, because this film has a lot of good moments in it. This film is not bad. It's got a lot of good things in it. I mean, it's not good. It's great on paper. It's got so many good things about it. It's just that whatever happened, whatever Jeff Johns did, or Warner Brothers did, and that fucking editing company edits fucking trailers did with this film, yeah, it just loses a lot of it. But however, if they did release David Ayer's Suicide Squad, I think it would be much better, because there are a lot of good things about this film. Anyway, I'm now going to go back into the non-spoiler bits. So, another thing I loved was even though he had very minimal screen time, and I have mentioned a little bit in the spoiler thing, Ben Affleck Batman is great in this. Ben Affleck is a great Batman. I mean, this is his second film as Batman. He's amazing in this. He's got very limited screen time. He's only in it for like 2 or 3 minutes. But he's great in that time. You believe he's Batman. However, I wish we could get the Ayer cut, because he was going to be in it a lot more, apparently. I mean, I even read one thing today, which I don't know if it's true. It could be completely wrong, so if it is, don't, jump on the comments and start and dislike the video a bazillion times just because I got something wrong. But somebody said in the original version he had the same amount of screen time in this film as Spider-Man did in Captain America: Civil War. I don't know if that's true. That could be completely wrong, because aside from capturing them and maybe a couple scenes with Joker, I don't know how you would be able to do that, because there's only so many places Batman could be in. However, if that is true, it does kind of make sense, because even though it's called Suicide Squad, and Batman obviously isn't the main character in Suicide Squad, he's an important part of it. Most of the people in the Suicide Squad are villains he's captured. One of them being the girlfriend to his arch-enemy, his main villain. So it would make sense for him to have a reasonable 15-20 minute amount of screen time. So yeah, I believe that. I would love it, and obviously it would have been great to see Ben Affleck Batman interacting with Jared Leto's Joker. I mean, they briefly have an encounter, but they don't talk. Jared Leto doesn't even say the word Batman. They don't talk to each other. They never look at each other's eyes. Batman didn't even say Joker in the film either. Batman, that's the thing. Ben Affleck's Batman, I might be wrong, but in terms of films, I know obviously they're going to talk to each other in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I've watched the trailer. The trailer was amazing, by the way. For Zack Snyder's Justice League. Joker's never said Batman, and Batman's never said Joker. He makes a reference to Joker in BVS, but he's never said the word Joker. So I think it's important for them to have had an interaction. I would have loved to have seen it, and I think they do. There's a lot of unreleased. There was a lot of concept art of unreleased footage of them having interactions, and I really want to watch that. I think that footage was filmed. David Ayer said a lot of it was filmed, so I would want to watch all of that if I want them to release it. And going straight on to Jared Leto Joker in terms of the positives. Now, you don't have to like Jared Leto Joker, and you don't have to agree with me. Obviously, everybody's allowed their own opinion, and I don't want you to get angry with me because I like the Joker. It's just that I see the potential in this Joker, and I've seen the trailer, I've seen like the snippet, you know, not like any things that anybody else hasn't seen. I haven't seen any of that. I'm not like behind the scenes or lying about how much I've seen. I've only seen what has been released through like David Ayer and the original trailers and all of these things that was cut out, and a few behind the scenes. I've seen some behind the scenes videos, but they're also public. You know, you would be able to find them if you went on YouTube. So I've seen bits of things that were cut out. And he's really good in those things that are cut out. You know, David Ayer, more than a couple of weeks ago now, but he released that, you know, you should be ashamed of yourself.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
And that's really cool. I love that. That's a very, you know, Jared Leto Joker thing to do. And that's the thing. And I'm going to go into that now. He was meant to be in the third act of the film. He was meant to have a much bigger role, and they reshot the entire third act and cut him out. I know could be technically a spoiler, but me saying Joker's not in the third act isn't exactly, you know, again, this film's fun. The main common criticism of this film was that Joker wasn't in it enough, or that Joker wasn't very good and not in it enough. So, it should be common knowledge that him not being in the, you know, final battle is a thing. That should be common knowledge. And that's because they reshot the third act. He was originally in the third act. And before someone goes, well, how do you know they reshot the whole thing? Well, because also one of the other characters had a different fate in the third act. So it was going to be different. And the design for Enchantress was also different. And there's lots of other things which I'm aware, and I don't know what happened with them. But I know a lot of what was going to be in the third act. Not because I'm like best friends with David Ayer, but because, you know, I, like a fan, I've researched and I talked, and every time David Ayer posts something, I read it, because I want to know, and I want to know if they're going to release it. You know, because he confirmed recently that he watched it. So him hopefully saying that means they're at least thinking about it. Hopefully if the Snyder Cut does well, they'll release it. There's no reason why they wouldn't. There's no benefit to not releasing it. Because even if it's not very good, then... Well, I'm not saying it's not very good, but even then, even if people don't like it, then it's not going to make any difference to Suicide Squad. There's already a Suicide Squad film where most people don't like it. So releasing, you know, a slightly better version of that film isn't going to do anything bad. I know the Suicide Squad coming out of James Gunn, but still. But yeah, I like his Joker. I actually really like Jared Leto's Joker. I think if they'd released the Ayer cut with his 30-40 minutes put back in, with his creepiness, with his scary nature, I like it. And I like his design. Okay, for one, let me list why. Just before you get pissed off with what I've just said, let me list why. Unlike other Jokers, he has frequent costume changes throughout the film. There's not one scene where he has the same look more than once. And I think for one start, that's actually quite cool that they bothered to, you know, give him a change of outfit in every scene. But he also comes across as a very, you know, mentally... He's psychotic. You can tell he's psychotic. He's an anarchist. He's not like a terrorist in the same way. But I can view him as like this sort of like a darker side of things. You know, like he owns clubs. He owns nightclubs. And I can see that those nightclubs have lots of dodgy things going on in them. Because he's chaotic. He just likes chaos. And I think that's what he is. He just fuels the negative side of life. And that's what I view this version of Joker as. I still think he would want Batman to kill him in the, you know, typical Joker way. But I just think he's got very negative side of life to him. And he likes to just cause chaos and cause problems. And if he was to rob a bank, he would be like really over the top sort of way, by like flying a helicopter into it or some stupid shit like that. So he's just like really over the top criminal crime boss who just wants chaos and destruction. And I like that. And people don't like the tattoos. Or A, comic book Joker had some tattoos. And B, I liked that because it's almost a strange way of, like, I'm not saying self-harm's good, but it suits, you know, the character. So him like putting memories and things on his body in permanent ink, I think is quite cool. And it just makes him look, and his like looks with his piercings, his grilled teeth, because Batman punched his face so hard that it shattered his teeth. I like his tattoos, and because of those reasons. And I just think it helps him look even more like a damaged individual. You get it? Damaged because of his forehead that everybody hates. I don't hate it, but everybody else seems to. Whatever. I was trying to be funny. So, I think it works in the context of the film that he looks like that. Obviously, he killed Robin, and that's why Batman punched him in the face so hard his teeth exploded into probably just powder. And then he's in Arkham, and then Harley Quinn. That's when he met Harley Quinn. She fell in love with him. She helped him escape. But obviously, Jeff Johns had to fuck that up by putting accomplice to the murder of Robin in Harley Quinn's bio, because fuck you. Oh God, why do you have to interfere? Jeff, why? Why? Whenever somebody has a good idea that isn't yours, you have to shit on it. Just why? That's not how this works. It should be collaboration, universe building, or at least some form of continuity. Stop shitting on other people's ideas, and then fucking off. It pisses me off. It pissed me off. Jeff Johns. And I like the potential. I see potential in this Joker. I like the design because I think it suits what this Joker's going for. His chaotic crime boss who likes chaos, and it also comes into his performance. He's clearly is damaged individual because of in the extended cut only, when he's talking about how she erased his mind, what few faded memories he had, and it makes him really angry, and I like that. So I do like him as Joker.
Just do it.
This looks neat.
I could probably will actually make a video on just why I like Jared Leto as Joker. And I'm not going to bash him because it was just heavily cut out. I want his original, scarier performance in the film because we only got the watered down bit. But even the watered down bit, I can see potential, and I can see what David Ayer was trying to go for, not what Warner Brothers was trying to go for. What David Ayer was trying to go for. So because of that, I want the Ayer cut. I want to see his 30-40 minutes that were cut out, and I want to watch the original version of this film.
What do we have here?
I did everything you said. I helped you.
You helped me by erasing my mind what faded memories I had. Oh. You left me in a black hole of rage and confusion. Without the medicine you practice, Dr. Quinzel.
What are you gonna do? You gonna kill me, Mr. J?
What?
Oh, I'm not gonna kill you.
I'm just gonna hurt you. Really, really bad.
You think so? Well, I can take it.
I wouldn't want you to break those perfect porcelain cap teeth when the juice hits your brain.
Overall, this is an okay film. I think it's a great film which has been cut down and edited and reshot into an okay film. I like what David Ayer was trying to do. I really want David Ayer's Suicide Squad. I like the casting he did. I like Jared Leto as Joker. I think he has a lot of potential. I like his performance and his limited screen time. I don't hate the design. I actually quite like it. I think it suits what they're going for. I like Ben Affleck as Batman, and of course I'd want to see more of him in this. And I want the original character's fate back in the film. I want the darker, more serious nature. I want them to change the third act. I want things to be different. I want the original score put back in. Just the original tone and colour correction as well would be amazing. I just think it'd be a much better film. Obviously, it's just a great film which has been turned into an okay, chopped up, edited film. But I really hope they do release his cut. I think it's fucking ridiculous. They're trying to turn Suicide Squad into Guardians of the Galaxy, and then got the Guardians of the Galaxy writer and director to do the sequel and let him make it dark and R-rated. That's just mental, in my opinion. Not saying I'm not looking forward to the Suicide Squad, because I actually do want to watch it, but I just mean in terms of the situation, I think that's a bit shit. So I do hope for them to release David Ayer's Suicide Squad. I really do. If you want to watch this film, you can. Obviously, I'm not saying you can't, but that's up to you. If you want to watch it, I'm gonna give it probably, what do I give it? I think it has potential, so you might disagree with me with this, because I gave 300 Rise of an Empire this same film quality. That might piss you off, but I think 300 Rise of an Empire, as it stands, isn't going to get better than what it was, whereas I think Suicide Squad has a lot of potential and has a lot of good things still inside of it. So I'm going to give it a 6.75 out of 10 for film quality. Its entertainment value is 7.5 out of 10. It is about the same as 300 Rise of an Empire. I personally think I would rather watch Suicide Squad, because I still think it's more original than 300 and has more potential than that film. But 300 Rise of an Empire, I don't know if I just said 300. Obviously not 300. 300 is amazing. Jesus, I don't know if I said it or not, but just in case, I'm just confirming I mean 300 Rise of an Empire. And I think this film has potential. So I'm going to give it 6.75 out of 10 for film quality and entertainment value, 7.5 out of 10. Also, just so you know, with the trailers as well, they were misleading, because the first trailer started off and that was just the David Ayer version of the film, and then the second trailer came out and that was during the interference, cutting it out, because there's still things in that which, well, a lot was cut out. But that was, during the phase, and obviously by the time the film came out, it was butchered. Similar thing happened with the Justice League trailers. Started off with Snyder, and each trailer came out, became less and less Snyder and more Whedon and Warner Brothers. Similar thing with this. So the trailers are misleading, I will say that. And that's just another reason why I want David Ayer's version of the film. It is fun. I do like, it's got original and I like what it was going for, so that's why I'm giving it that. Obviously, if you do decide to watch it, I recommend the Blu-ray extended cut. I'm not going to recommend the 4K, because the 4K is only the theatrical cut. They didn't put the extended cut on 4K. So I just recommend this version, the Blu-ray extended cut. If you do want to watch it, that is. I'm not telling you to watch it. Yeah, that's what I recommend, and I recommend this over digital like I always do, because unless you got the best internet, the film quality is never the same, so I do recommend it on Blu-ray if you decide to watch it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review. Sorry it was long, but there's so much to talk about with this film, because, it had so much done to it. It's just such a really difficult film to review. It's like BVS. It's difficult to review BVS, but they're difficult for different reasons, because BVS has got so many little details I love. This film is so many things which I want to love, but was like, no, you can't. We're going to cuss it. Cut the head off before you can enjoy it. So yeah, that's how I feel. So yes. Anyway. I hope you enjoyed the video. My next review will be for Wonder Woman, so I hope you watch that as well. If you watched it, let me know what you think. You probably disagree with me because you fucking hate it, but if you actually, like me, think this film's okay and has a lot of potential to be great if they released the unedited version, let me know. I hope you, like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one as well. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.